Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Being here, and today I'm coming at you with my June 2021 wrap up. Now, for the month of June, I actually got through what I am calling, for this month at least, a record number of books, which is very exciting, which is also very sad because the record means that I read 10 books this month. Go me! Woohoo! So I managed to read 10 books this month, like I said, and I did enjoy them for the most part as well. So let's hop right in and start with some stats. So as I said, I read a total of 10 books this month. 5 I physically owned, 2 were books that I borrowed, 1 was an ebook, 1 was an audiobook, and 1 is an ARC that I also own. As far as ratings go, 4 of them got 5 stars, 3 of them got 4.5 stars, 2 got 4 stars, and 1 got a 3-star. As far as pages went, I read a total of 3,544 pages this month, the longest book being 512 pages, and the shortest being 152 pages. 1 of these books was under 200 pages, 2 were between 201 and 300 pages, 5 were between 301 and 400 pages, 1 was between 401 and 500 pages, and then 1 was between 501 and 600 pages. So they're starting to get longer. Moving on to the author, 6 of these authors were from the United States, 2 were from Ireland or the UK, 1 is from Canada, and 1 was from Europe, excluding Ireland and the UK. So they were actually from France is where they were born. As far as author gender goes, 2 of the books were by male authors, 7 of the books were by female authors, and 1 was by a combination. 9 out of the 10 books I read this month were fiction, 3 were fantasy, 1 was a horror thriller, 1 was a romance, 2 were mysteries, and 2 were magical realism. And then I did read a nonfiction this month, and it was a science-based one. So of these 10 books, 5 were adult books and 5 were YA books. And those are my stats for this month. I have to say, I think I'm getting better at keeping track of the stats. I actually remembered to do my math beforehand today. So that's exciting because I never remember to do my math because, yes. And in case you wondered, I do have a spreadsheet that I use for my statistics in my bullet journal that I keep on my iPad. So this is what it looks like. So yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed that. And now let's move on to the books themselves. The first book that I finished this month was Lock and Key Volume 4, Keys to the Kingdom. This is by Joe Hill and Gabriel Rodriguez, who is the artist. Phenomenal art in this graphic novel. I have slowly been working my way through this series. I finished the 4th book this month. It was creepy. Honestly, it was one of the more interesting ones because it ended up being a bunch of short stories, like short little clips of what happens throughout the months. Like they might even only be a line long of telling you what happened this month. So just kind of building the tension throughout this story. And this is where we got a really big turn in how our characters are interacting together. So I'm anxious to see what happens in the next one. All right, the next book that I read was a cozy mystery. I finally got into one, and that was Well Read Then Dead, the first book in the Read 'em and Eat mystery by Terry Farley Morin. Now, this was a super fun little cozy mystery. I've always loved cozy mysteries. They've kind of been the type of books that get me out of reading slumps, so I'm thinking that this is the one that really helped get me going again this month. This book is basically what I look for when it comes to cozy mysteries. So it has a shocking mystery that takes place in a small town, a new sheriff, or deputy in this case, that is just considered way too attractive for their own good, a small business that our main character usually works at, that usually includes cats as well. There's little old ladies with very strong opinions, a main character who is starting over in this small town after moving out of a big town from either a divorce or an overbearing family, something of the sort. her not listening to the numerous warnings and cautionary tales given to her by various members of the community, notably the sheriff or deputy that she now has a huge crush on and is denying wholeheartedly. Her stumbling into a situation that she really shouldn't be in at all, and then ended up solving the mystery, sometimes before the sheriffs do, and usually on accident, and then she usually either gets hit over the head or gets knocked out some other way or ends up in danger and has to be saved. But she still is able to hold her own, so it's not the typical damsel in distress before you start thinking that. There's no damsel in distress here. She can hold her own. And in this book, Sassy, our main character, is absolutely no different. She is headstrong, she knows what she wants in life, and she will get it. She's a very great person. She has started this book/cafe with her best friend Bridget, and Bridget and Sassy end up finding themselves a part of this mystery of this murder that has suddenly taken place in their small town. And so I loved this book. I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5. I can definitely see where this series is headed. There's only 3 books in this series, and I do happen to own all 3 of them. So I will be reading the other 2, hopefully soon, because it's just, they're comfort reads. They're books that will make me happy when I really need to smile. So I look forward to reading more about Sassy and Bridget. The next book that I read was another BookBox book that I drew, and that is Magician's Impossible by Brad Abraham. This was an alright book. It was very predictable. Basically, from the start, I kind of knew nearly everything that was going to happen, which is unfortunate. However, I absolutely loved the idea behind this book. This book follows Jason Bishop, who has been living on his own as a bartender, very content with his life, when suddenly it is shattered when his father dies, and he is thrust into this world of magic. And not just any magic, but like secret society type magic, and he finds out who his mother is and what his father was trying to do, and honestly it gets very convoluted very fast. It's a good twist on the chosen one trope, because it's not really a chosen one story. It's more of a, no, I don't want to deal with this shit, so I'm going to solve it on his part. So that's kind of interesting and a fun way of doing it. I did like this book. I do think I'm going to unhaul it. It's not really one that I really want to keep. I ended up giving it a 3 out of 5. All right, the next book that I read is actually one that I have had on my list for quite some time, and it is a nonfiction, and that is Dark Archives, a librarian's investigation into the science and history of books bound in human skin by Megan Rosenblum. It's a very long title, so I have to look at it every time because I don't remember it. I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5. It is a very well-researched book about a subject that I never thought I would find interesting at all. I would recommend the audiobook. I love the way that it's narrated. Reading through it, it did just kind of take me a very long time. I was very slow at reading through this book, but the audiobook really helped with that, so I highly recommend the audiobook. Like I said, this book was very well researched, and having said that, I don't think it is a book for everybody. There are trigger warnings and such because it is about human skin bound books bound in human skin. And for those of you who don't know, this is a possibility, and these are usually books that end up as collector's items. So if you don't want to talk about this, skip ahead until my next book. That's fine. I won't take any offense to it. I ended up reading this because the title and the concept of it really intrigues me. I am a librarian currently, and so I would like to learn all there is to know about books. And since my interest is in archival studies, is in history of books, this is a very big part of it, whether or not we want to acknowledge it or not. So I think this was a very interesting book. For me personally, I don't want a book bound in a human skin, not gonna lie, that's not my thing. But I will say that it was very interesting to read a librarian's historical account of all of this. So I did think this was interesting. I gave it a 4 out of 5. All right, and now let's move on to a book that made me cry. And that was our Dark Duet, the second book in the Monsters of Verity series by Victoria Schwab. I don't own the second one. I'm going to go buy it later today. So I will say that this book was so beautiful. It was so well done. I picked up a couple months after the first one ended, and it was interesting and heartbreaking, and it was very interesting to see where our characters had ended up and how they had changed throughout time, and how the events of the first book had affected them into becoming the people they were in the second book. So I think that was super intriguing. The way that August went kind of broke my heart. But I guess the twists and turns throughout this book really did capture my attention. I thought this book was melodic. I thought it was beautiful. I cried. The character development throughout this story was top-notch, amazing, and the new creature that we meet, oh my god, was probably the creepiest thing I have seen in a very long time, and kudos to you for coming up with that one. That one was creepy AF, and I cannot recommend this duology enough. Look, guys, I finished a series! But in case you can't figure it out, I gave this book a 5 out of 5. The next book I read is one that I have put off for way too long, and that is Lipstick Voodoo by Christy Cherish. I got this book as an ARC in 2017. Let the shame begin. Yes, I did finally finish this book, and once I started it, I could not put it down. This follows Kincaid Strange, who is a voodoo practitioner in Seattle, Washington. This is the second book in what right now is a trilogy. I do have the third book. But her whole thing is that she makes money by talking with the dead and by holding seances with people. So it's a very interesting story. I can't talk a lot about this one without getting into the second one, except without spoiling the first one. But what I can say is that in the first one, she ends up trying to help a zombie who is randomly resurrected, and she's trying to figure out how he was resurrected, by whom, and why. So it's a very interesting story. The zombies in this story are not your blood-sucking monsters for the most part. They do act human. They are just very confused people who don't always even realize that they're dead. So it's very interesting. This book gets a little bit more into her business itself and how the community reacts to it, because lots of people are trying to deny that the supernatural exists in this world, even though it is obvious that it does. But it's the human condition. What can I say? So I highly recommend anything, honestly, by Christy Cherish. I love her writing style. Her writing is beautiful, and it's so gritty, and Kincaid is just, she's a girl that gets things done. And if she doesn't have time for it, she's not going to listen to it. She's such a hard ass, and I absolutely love her, and I can't wait to see where her next adventure, Shanghai Voodoo, takes us. So I'm very excited to read the next one. I will say that this book did take a little bit to get going, but once it got going, it did not stop for a moment. The other thing to know about Kincaid Strange is that she is not a perfect character. She makes mistakes, and that is always kind of one of my favorite things about most characters, is when they do make mistakes and it is acknowledged that what they have done is a mistake, and they acknowledge it, and then they move on from it and learn from it. I think that's probably the best character development you can have, and this book is excellent at that. So, highly recommend. I gave this a 4 out of 5. All right, the next book that I read, I actually ended up listening to, and this was the audiobook, and that was Bodies from the Library, 13 Lost Tales of Mystery and Suspense by Agatha Christie and Other Masters of the Golden Age. This is edited by Tony Medawar, and I listened to this one on Scribd when I found it, because this was so interesting. I've really been into a lot of the classic mystery stories, and in case you don't know, I actually have been working my way through all of Agatha Christie's works over the past couple of years. I've been working through them slowly, so that's why I haven't finished them yet. But this is a series of short stories that were collected, kind of, I don't want to say lost stories, but a couple of them are. There's stories that were never published or that were published very quietly. I learned a lot from this book, actually, as well as listening to the different stories by different mystery authors. I also learned a lot about mystery stories and their origins. For instance, I was unaware that when mystery stories were first published in the early 20s and the 30s, they were actually published in bits and pieces, and where they were published was in either magazines or in the newspaper. And so you would have to wait for each weekly edition or subscription to come out in order to read the next part of the mystery. They weren't published in full books until the 1950s. So I thought that was very interesting. And I am actually currently listening to the second book in this series. There's a whole bunch of them. I don't even know how many there are. Looks like there's 4. So it looks like as of right now, there are 4. Maybe there's going to be more of these books out. I'm currently listening to the second one when I go for walks or anything because it's very interesting, and they are short stories. For the audiobook, they vary between 20 minutes long to an hour and a half long. So it all depends on the story itself. I highly recommend this if you're into any sort of mystery stories, if you want to learn about them, because this also does a little bit of background on the author themselves. So also does a background, it does a little miniature biography on each of the authors. So I've actually found a bunch of different mystery authors that I want to read some more of their stuff. So that's also very exciting. Just adding more books to my TBR, because we know that I need more books on my TBR, right? No. Well, anyways, so this is what I've been listening to, and this was a great story. I highly recommend this one for any mystery lovers. I ended up giving it a 5 out of 5. The next book that I managed to get through was Blood Heir by Amelia Wenzel. I'm so excited to have finally read this book and gotten through it, and I loved it, and why did it take so long? And I can't believe that the community bullied her. I'm really annoyed with y'all, with those people. No, don't do that. If she wants to publish her book, let her publish her book. Books aren't perfect. Irritation. I have a whole thing on what happened with the publication of this book. It pisses me off to no degree. But I don't really want to get into that right now because I don't want to be irritated for the rest of the day. So I'm going to talk about this book instead. Blood Heir by Amelia Wenzel is a reimagining of Anastasia, but with magic. So this follows our main character, Anna, who has been exiled as the princess of the Cerulean Empire because it turns out that she has magic. And not just any magic, she has blood magic. So she is able to control blood. Blood inside people, blood outside people. She can control it. And so this really takes off after she runs away after being exiled, and her brother is placed on the throne since she has run away, and her goal is to get back at the man who murdered her father. And you know this right from the beginning. But this book is just so intense, and it's so interesting because I find that a lot of books where the main character is given a magic that could be dangerous, or people keep calling you a monster because of it, they decide, no, I'm not going to use this magic because I'm not going to be this monster. She uses it and she goes, you know what, you want me to be a monster? Fine, I'll be the monster. And it kind of reminded me a little bit of the Shadow and Bone thing, fine, make me your monster. But that's really what she did. She ended up learning how to use her ability in order to get what she needed. Not exactly what she wanted, but what she needed. And so it's very intriguing, and it's so well done, and I think this book is absolutely beautiful. So if you haven't read this one, please go read it. I do have Red Tigress on my TBR, which is the sequel, and the third book, the cover just dropped. It is beautiful. I'm very excited for it, and yeah, hopefully I'll get to it. Hopefully I'll get to Red Tigress within the next couple months and be able to read it. So yes, I ended up giving this a 4.5 out of 5. It did take me a little bit to get into, unfortunately. But once I was in it, I was not letting go. Nope. And it was a little trope heavy at points, but I know also that this is a debut, so that's bound to happen. All right, the next book that I read. Oh my gosh, guys. So Callie and I try and read a book together every month, and for one of the first times, it actually worked. I managed to read the book this month. Look at me go, guys. And that was Blade of Secrets by Trisha Levenseller. This book's amazing. But then again, I love anything Trisha Levenseller writes. I just absolutely love her writing style, and the fact that she can fit a huge plot into this many pages. Like, it's amazing how much she gets into her books. Her books are never super long, but she still gets a full and in-depth world and story into these books. And they're addicting. This is going to be a duology, and I'm really upset that I don't have the second one right now, because that ending, I have feelings and I can't explain them, and it's sad now. But this book follows 18-year-old Ziva, who is a magic wielding blacksmith. And basically what her magic allows her to do is that when she creates a weapon, she is able to infuse a certain magical ability into that weapon. And then she sells them to her customers that way. And that is how her and her sister have made their living. Now, one day she is approached by a warlord and asked to make a sword. This sword, she makes the sword, and all of a sudden realizes exactly what it does. Anyone whose blood it tastes, so whenever it cuts someone and it gets blood from them, it takes their secrets, and it shares their secrets with the wielder, so only in their head. And Ziva realizes that this is probably not a good weapon to have out in the world, especially in the hands of a warlord who wants to overthrow the king. And so her and her sister end up going on the run, and they pick up a couple people along the way, and it's absolutely adorable. I think the most interesting thing for me is that I saw a lot of myself in Ziva because she has a severe social anxiety. So do I. I don't like talking to people person to person. This is fine because it's more like I'm talking at myself, but social anxiety is a true thing, and it is very underrepresented. There is underrepresentation of social anxiety in literature, and I think this book honestly does it perfectly. It shows how much she's so uncomfortable with the world around her. She just wants to go back to her forge, and she just wants to be a blacksmith. She doesn't want to have to deal with anything. And it also goes into how around certain people you just feel comfortable, and that's okay, and that's kind of the way it goes. And so I thought that was very well done and very interesting, and probably one of my favorite parts about this book. The character development is ace and amazing, and I loved every second of it. And I just can't wait to get the second one. Now, please? Pretty please? So, yes. In case you can't tell, this book got a 5 out of 5 from me. And the last book that I managed to read this month was Heartstopper Volume 3 by Alice Oseman. This is a story that follows these two lovely boys, Charlie and Nick, as they explore the fact that one of them is gay and one of them is still realizing his sexuality, but is realizing that he's probably bisexual. And it's Nick's first time in a relationship, and Charlie's getting over from being bullied for being gay earlier on in his life, in his school life. And so they're still trying to figure out the nuances of their relationship and how it all works. And they're just the most adorable boys ever. And Volume 4 is out in the UK, but it's not out in the US. And I'm really sad about it because I pre-ordered it and it's not going to come for another couple months. And I'm really sad. And these boys are just so cute. This kind of reads like a manga, and it makes me very happy. Because there's a little drama, but there's not a lot of drama in this at all. A lot of drama, yeah. There's not a lot of drama in this series. It's more like natural and more like they're still figuring it out. Like, a lot of big steps happen, like Nick coming out to his mom, Charlie telling his parents that he's dating again, and their siblings finding out, their best friends, their exes finding out. It's very, very interesting, and it's so sweet, it's so cute, and I just think everyone should read it. I gave this a 5 out of 5. So there you go. Those are the books that I managed to read in the month of June. I'm actually doing better, so that was very exciting. And now I'm moving on to the month of July. So currently I am working my way through Down Comes the Night by Allison Shaft. I am 100 pages in and I'm really enjoying it. It's starting to pick up now, so I'm really enjoying this book so far. It's a quick read. I just haven't had a lot of reading time I live in the United States, and the 4th of July ended up being a whole weekend thing, and I just got a new job, and it's just a lot of things have been happening, one thing after another, so we'll see how my reading goes this month. Hopefully it goes just as well. I'm starting to finally catch up on my TBR. But yeah, so we'll see how it goes. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button down below. We post videos every Tuesday and Thursday and occasional Sundays. And if you want to be reminded when we post new videos, hit the little bell icon down below. Works most of the time. And we would love to talk to you guys in the comments, so feel free to comment down below your favorite books of the past month and what you're planning on reading in July. And until next time, guys, stay safe, stay healthy, and keep reading. Bye!